All right, this video might be a little bit long, I guess I could say, but I think you're going to find this very interesting and very informative about the gold situation. Now, I'm going to start by saying I remember Q had been asked, "Do we have the gold?" And his response was, "Yes, we do, and gold will destroy the Fed." At that, you know, all I can say is I hope he's right. Because what you're about to hear right now does not sound good. And we've heard about this. Remember the audit? There was an audit of the gold reserves in the 80s or something, and all the files got lost, and the audit got lost, and no one knows what the documents were. Something was changed, but the old documents, the backups were gone. You remember that? Auditing our gold. What the hell's up with that? So this guy from voimagold.com, it was posted on Zero Hedge. And I just, actually, yeah, it was on Zero Hedge, I believe. And I said, let me just go to the main site because he has a link to it, and I'll read it there. Too much crap popping up all over Zero Hedge right now. So let's just listen to this. Because if we have the gold, why aren't the audits, why is the government fighting this guy tooth and nail to not give him just basic information? We just want to know, where's our effing gold? It's our country, it's ours. I mean, I just want to see the numbers. Where is it? And maybe my personal opinion here is, again, it's been all sent out, borrowed 50 different times. 50 different people think they own the thing. We've lent to other countries. Maybe that's the problem. I don't know. You hear that little ding? Was that Q or is that a text message? That was a trade bot. My trade bot buy order triggered. I don't think that was PPT. No, that's just regular. Yeah, that's the Bitcoin. So I had a sell order yesterday at 145, which got us out of this huge dump today, which is great. It did it by itself. And now that it's dumped, a buy order triggered. Question is, are we dumping more or not? Are we dumping more? Maybe, maybe not. This could be the bottom. Anyway, so here we go. U.S. official gold reserves auditor caught lying. More false statements by the auditor have appeared, further eroding its credibility. In my previous post from March 2018 on the audits of U.S. official gold reserves, I have exposed that during the audit procedures of the U.S. official gold reserves from 1974 through 2008, repeatedly audit staff deviated from the auditing protocol, while internal control meant to prevent this was failing. Many audits and essay reports have been destroyed. For decades, a significant share of the metal was excluded from verifications for no apparent reason. And the U.S. government went to great lengths in withholding information and spreading false information about the audits, among other findings and documents obtained through Freedom of Information Act request, or I'll shorten that and call it a FOIA request. All in all, these findings made me question the integrity of the auditor. After my last publication, I have obtained more documents from the U.S. Treasury through FOIA requests, which expose another falsehood that puts the auditor in an even more peculiar position. In conflict with the audit protocol, the permanent seals of the vault compartments have been broken, time and time again. In addition, the auditor has lied about these events, and when confronted, it's unable to explain its actions. By now, I have lost faith in the auditor fully. Prologue. It's been a very long investigative journey that has led me to make bold statements, such as the ones above, about the auditor of the world's largest gold holding. I wouldn't claim anything of this magnitude if I didn't thoroughly do my homework and research every single possibility that could have caused the auditor to have accidentally spread inaccurate material, including asking the auditor for an explanation. If any of their statements appear to be false, surely they would be able to explain what I was missing. The head auditor said during a congressional hearing in 2011, source, he's got a video for you, source, "Transparency is our business," he said. Who would disagree? the U.S. official gold reserves, weighing over 8,000 metric tons. Now, Fat Bastard only weighs a metric ton. This is 8,000 metric tons. Deserve nothing less than an accurate audit. My journey started in 2014 when I first discovered, in contrast to what I was accustomed to reading on blogs and in the newspapers, that the U.S. official gold reserves are audited every year. I published an article on my discoveries titled A First Glance at U.S. Official Gold Reserve Audits, which was basically a summary of all publicly available documents about the audits. Logically, these documents present a narrative that looks to be credible at the surface, but I found some questions left unanswered and wrote in my article, quote, "This post will be part of a series," end quote. Little did I know what I got myself into. Given the importance of the subject, I intended to submit FOIA requests at the U.S. government in an open-minded attempt to have my concerns removed. Since 2014, I have been prosecuting the U.S. government. I have emailed staff of all related institutions, the U.S. Treasury, the Office of Inspector General of the Treasury, the U.S. Mint, and the National Archives, that were initially replied, but as I got closer to the details, ceased altogether. I have submitted several dozen FOIA requests to all related institutions, some of which were honored, some not. In search of answers, I repeatedly called the Inspector General. In one of those calls, my contact simply hung up while I was talking. This incident is emblematic of the whole investigation. On one occasion, the Mint wrote me a specific FOIA request would cost me $3,145 based on an estimate of 1,200 pages of responsive documentation and the duplication costs associated with the requested documents. This estimate also includes 40 hours of estimated search time and 8 hours of estimated review time. The costs seemed outrageous to me, but I got financed through a crowdfunding campaign and paid the Mint. A few months later, I received 223 redacted pages. Remember, not 1,200. Like they said, 1,200 pages. I received only 223 redacted pages, so they're not even full, they're redacted, again, meaning lots of shit's blanked out, that contained 68 pages of reports that I did not ask for. So of the 223, 68 of them didn't even ask for, and 21 pages that were copied twice. Effectively, I got 134 pages for $3,145. After some pressure on the Mint, they agreed the cost had been estimated too high, and I got the full amount refunded. And I ordered my crowdfunding platform to refund all my donors. Good move, appreciate that. The barrier of the costs was used to keep me at bay. To no avail, instead, I got some essential pages in my possession. So they tried to scare him off, $3,000 price tag if you want that information. It's 1,200 pages. Okay, I got the money. Here you go. Oh, okay. Here's 134 pages. That's all you're getting. That's a tenth, roughly, of what I asked for. Well, you know. Anyways, in total, I have written 9 articles to inform my audience about the developments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's got all links to them. After the last one, which was a comprehensive overview of every piece of information I had found, published on March 28, 2018, at the Bullion Star website, a reply to another FOIA request came into my mailbox. I received a document that irrefutably, I should say, reveals a lie by the auditor. Today's article is about this falsehood and numerous other false statements by the auditor that all have one thing in common. They hid the fact that most vault compartments have been reopened multiple times after being put under permanent seals, which were meant to prevent reopening of the doors. Upon request, the auditor provided me one argument for these actions, the reopening of compartments. Alas, the argument is in conflict with another statement by them, made under oath, so the auditor still stands as unable to answer a critical question. Unfortunately, and contrary to how it could have been done, the entire audit process from 1974 until 2008 is extremely complicated. The account below is simplified. I can't discuss every detail in every article, but for the ones that want to know the details, I have added external sources in parentheses with hyperlinks, which can be used to cross-check my statements. Also, you can read my previous posts, and if anything is still unclear, I invite anyone to ask me to expand on my conclusions in the comment section below this article. I am willing to substantiate any findings, as one should when making bold claims. Let's start with some background information, and then we discuss the heart of the matter. Introduction. The U.S. official gold reserves are the largest globally at 8,134 metric tons, owned by the U.S. Treasury. Although this gold does not back the U.S. dollar at a fixed parity, as it did before 1971, it does provide essential support as a final backstop to the dollar and thus credibility to the present world reserve currency. The majority of the gold is located at the U.S. Mint Depository at Fort Knox. Smaller amounts are stored at U.S. Mint depositories in Denver and West Point. Aggregated, this metal is referred to as deep storage gold and is captured with 42 sealed vault compartments. The remainder is at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. When the audits commenced in 1974, the protocol designed was simple. Page 534 if anyone wants to know. The following excerpt is from the first auditing committee. In performing the audit, the gold bars are physically moved from one vault compartment to another. During this operation, the melt numbers and the numbers of bars in each melt are verified with an inventory listing, and 1 in 50 melts is randomly selected for weighing and test assay. Scrolling down, one melt averages about 20 bars cast from one crucible of molten gold. The audit protocol follows these actions. Here, getting links to all this stuff. Performed by an authorized committee in accordance with established procedures will not have to be repeated as long as the assets verified remain under an unimpaired joint seal. Compartments physically verified were placed under official joint seal to avoid the necessity of verifying all assets in each annual or special settlement audit. The U.S. Treasury pledged to do a periodic cyclical inventory to ensure that about 10% of the gold was physically inspected annually, eventually to have audited all the gold for which the U.S. government is accountable by 1984. The essence of the established protocol or procedures was to open, audit, and seal each compartment once. We will return to this fundamental topic later on. Since the stated purpose of joint sealing was to avoid the need for re-audits, all of the gold could, after 1984, be verified by simply checking if the seals were unimpaired. Did anyone remove the seals? Are they still there? Okay, it's fine. Great intentions, but this is not what happened. The current auditor of the U.S. monetary gold is the Department of the Treasury's Office of Inspector General. Representing the OIG, Eric M. Thorson attended the congressional hearing for the Gold Transparency Act, not enacted, that was initiated by Ron Paul in 2011. Unfortunately, it wasn't enacted, I guess, right? Mr. Thorson's testimony at the hearing serves as the official statement by the government on the audits. Having weighed his words carefully, Thorson spoke under oath. He said 100% of the U.S. government's gold reserves in the custody of the Mint has been inventoried and audited. I can say that without any hesitation because I have observed the gold and the security of the gold reserves myself. The Committee for Continuing Audit of the U.S. Government-Owned Gold, the committee that started the audits, performed annual audits of Treasury's gold reserves from 1974 to 1986. By 1986, 97% of the government-owned gold held by the Mint had been audited and placed under joint seal. So once you have done that seal remains unbroken, then I'm not sure what other benefit there would be to going back into it at that point. Since 1993, when we, OIG, assumed responsibility for the audit, my office has continued to directly observe the inventory and test the gold. In fact, my auditors signed the official joint seals, placed on those compartments, inventoried and tested in their presence. At the end of fiscal year of 2008, all 42 compartments had been audited by the Committee of Continuing Audit of the U.S. government-owned gold, or my office, and placed under official joint seals. End of his quote. Thus, in summary, from 1974 until 1986, 97% of the gold at the mint had been verified by the Committee for Continuing Audit. That's the name of the committee, Committee for Continuing Audit. In 1993, the OIG became responsible for the audits, and by 2008, all compartments had been verified and sealed. The conclusions we derive from Thorson's testimony. From 1987 until 1992, there were no audits. From 1993 until 2008, the remaining 3% of the gold was verified. Thorson doesn't mention anything about vault compartments having been reopened. Now we go to the problem. First of all, the OIG did not assume responsibility for the audits since 1993, but since 1982, as disclosed in one of the few documents that survived the 1980s, page 2, effective October 1st, 1982, the internal audit staff of BGFO and the United States Mint Committee for Continuing Audit were reorganized under the Department of Treasury Office of the Inspector General. Ever since the OIG became part of the audits in 1982, exactly what was not supposed to happen did happen. Vault compartments that had been physically verified and sealed were reopened. Read with me from the 1986 audit report regarding the Fort Knox, page 8, and Denver, page 9 depositories. And here it is. As of September 30th, 1982, 100% of the gold stored at the depository was audited under the initial continuing audit program. Between July 1983 and July 1985, the gold was audited in accordance with the plan approved by the treasurer as follows. And it just shows the amounts or whatever. As of September 30th, 1984, 99.9% of the gold stored at the United States Denver Mint had been audited under the initial continuing audit program. Subsequent re-audits of gold were as follows: October 1984 to October 1985. And again, it shows a couple of the amounts. For some reason, starting in 1983, re-audits were performed over 1,929 tons, in accordance with the plan approved by the treasurer. However, in 1983, both depositories had already been fully audited, while West Point had not. Why were these compartments reopened when the protocol stated that these actions, physical verification, having once been performed, will not have to be repeated as long as these assets verified remain under an unimpaired joint seal? The OIG cannot explain this to me, and neither can it explain to me what the plan approved by the treasurer was. What Thorson carefully refrained from mentioning under oath, he mentions in a written statement for the Gold Transparency Act. At the surface, his official testimony seems identical to his written statement, but when I compared both word for word, the latter crosses a topic that's excluded in the former. Thorson never spoke about this in the congressional hearing, page 45. Which was from 1987 to 1992, the Mint continued to perform an annual inventory and verification of gold reserves in accordance with its own policies over those compartments and had not been placed under official joint seal. Note that the quote above, we learn from the U.S. Mint, mind you, the custodian of the gold, audited the U.S. monetary gold in accordance with its own policies from 1987 to 1992. This is arguably like a bank opening its customer safety deposit boxes. According to universal auditing principles, a custodian is not authorized to audit its client's assets. An independent entity should audit custodial gold. This might explain why Thorson failed to mention this in the congressional hearing. Note also that Thornton writes that the Mint exclusively opened those compartments that had not been placed under official joint seal. This is false, and I can prove it. I've obtained copies of the seals that were placed by the Mint on 5 deep storage compartments, together containing 795 tons of gold between 1987 and 1992, which, again, you can download the link, he's got it. Thorson's written statement is false, as these compartments had, for a fact, already been verified and sealed, because they were all at Fort Knox and Denver, which were fully audited by 1982. Let's have a look at one of the seal copies, which he shows, signatures and everything else. We can see that the seal date at the top, July 25th, 1990, and the depository is Fort Knox, Kentucky. Thus, Thorson lied to us when he said that the Mint was only verifying those compartments that had not been placed under official joint seal, because we know Fort Knox was fully audited and thus all of its compartments put under official joint seal by 1982. We can also see on the seal when this compartment was sealed previously. It was in 1976, confirming it was a re-audit. If it was the first audit, the sealed previously date had to be prior to 1974, before any audits were performed. Last but not least, at the very bottom of the seal, we see a date, February 16, 1993, which is when this seal was removed by the OIG, presumably for yet another re-audit. More evidence that the OIG must have known what happened to these compartments in between 1987 and 1992, as removing the seal in 1993 by the OIG clearly would have shown the history of this compartment. Attentive readers might see a pattern emerging. From 1993 to 2008, additional compartments were re-audited. Thorson, again, did not mention these re-audits under oath, but in this specific period, more than 2,000 tons of gold saw the light of day again. I know through an Excel sheet, download here, the OIG sent me in response to a FOIA request. When I asked the OIG for confirmation on how much they audited since 1993, they replied, since 1993, we observed the counting of 246,203 bars, which equates to 81 million plus whatever FTOs or 2,539 tons. When I asked my contact at the OIG why thousands of tons had been re-audited in periods from 1983 to 2008, he replied, your FOIA request to Treasury OIG, okay? This position of the Treasury OIG with respect to the government-owned gold is set forth in our annual audit reports in this testimony from 2011. In addition, I can tell you, and he underlines this part, I can tell you the reason that gold has to be re-verified in some cases was because occasionally vault contents would have to be moved, and in each such case the bars would have to be recounted to assure full accountability. So that was his reply. Unfortunately, the OIG stopped responding to my emails by late 2016. Everything had to be submitted through FOIA requests, I was told, which made my investigations take a few extra years. Notice that the OIG doesn't mention the plan approved by the Treasurer, which at least could have explained the re-audits from 1983 to 1986. An explanation of why so many compartments had to be re-verified in some cases, as he said, was because occasionally vault contents would have to be moved. However, this argument makes no sense. It is true that since 1974, when the audits started, gold has been moved. Roughly 1,900 tons were moved from New York ASA office to West Point, but this movement occurred in 1982 before any re-audits began. There have been no other substantial movements of gold. Additional evidence indicating there hasn't been any movement of deep storage gold comes ironically from Thorson. Let's go back to the congressional hearing with Ron Paul, and Thorson in 2011. After Thorson's testimony, a Q&A follows where Paul asked Thorson about the audits from 1974 until 1986, and if it would be worthwhile to inventory and assay or audit this portion of the gold again. Thorson replies that would be unnecessary because there is no movement. Those doors aren't opened. There's nothing there that can happen because once those doors are sealed, it's very obvious if those seals are ever broken, there is no movement. Those doors are not opened. A strange thing to say for Thorson, as this is exactly what he was continuously doing, reopening the compartment doors. With this statement, Thorson confirms that any compartment should never have been reopened. Not only is this what happened time and time again, but it also started precisely from the moment Thorson's department, OIG, became involved with the audits in 1983. In trying to think of any legitimate reason why compartments have been reopened, ever, I decided to submit a FOIA request for the audit protocols that prevailed after 1992. Maybe the audit approach had been changed. If the OIG can't explain it to me, maybe I can find the answers in some documents. What if I'm still missing something? Eventually, I received the Mint's 2005 audit directive that shows us whenever a compartment has been verified, the annual reflection or audit will be limited to inspection of the seals. Put differently, once physically verified, the doors remain closed with the seal on them, right? And yeah, he just shows a link or thing that says that, basically. Okay, makes sense as this auditing approach matches the one from the 1970s. Like Thorson said during the congressional hearing in 2011, quote, so once you have done that physical verification and that seal remains unbroken, then I'm not sure what other benefit there would be to going back at that point. There's no movement. Those doors are not opened, end quote. Note in the quote above that an OIG representative must be present for any subsequent opening. The issue isn't whether it's possible to reopen a compartment. Gold inside a compartment that can never be opened again has no value. You might as well put it in a rocket and blast it into the sun. The point is that, barring legitimate reasons to reopen a compartment, for example, selling the metal inside, they should remain closed. Conclusion. Altogether, the vast majority of deep storage vault compartments have been reopened for dubious reasons. For exact data on re-audit, see my article, which he links. After years of prosecuting, these are the facts as they lay in front of us. Right here, as you know, scroll down. After years of prosecuting, these are the facts as they lay in front of us. The majority of deep storage vault compartments have been reopened for unknown or dubious reasons. Again, for details, see this link. Under oath, the auditor, Thorson, carefully avoided the subject of reopening compartments. In another written statement, the same auditor lied about the subject of reopening compartments. And when this auditor was asked for an explanation regarding the reopening of compartments, it could only muster an unfitting one. I find it astonishing that all falsehoods the auditor, OIG, has spread have in common that they hide the fact compartments have in fact been reopened. My investigation concerns the audits which appear to have been executed with an inadequate degree of integrity. Accordingly, there should be a new audit authorized by Congress, which incidentally is also the opinion of former U.S. Mint Director Edmund C. Moy. See the tweet below. And someone replied, this is from 2015 in Twitter, someone said, a quantitative audit where Dr. Ron Paul selects a bar randomly for assay, whatever, how much would that cost? And Edmund Moy says, not much, but wouldn't satisfy him. In my opinion, there should be a comprehensive audit authorized by Congress. So that was who? Former U.S. Mint Director saying Congress needs to do an official audit. So this guy says, continuing with the article, this is pretty much the end. Naturally, if the OIG or Treasury wants to respond to my findings, that would be more than welcome, and I would be happy to engage with them. And some notes. The original document states 1975, but for the sake of simplicity, I've changed it to 1974. Officially, the Committee for Continuing Audit, whatever. Yeah, so this is just some miscellaneous notes. So I know that was kind of long. I said it was going to be. I knew it would be. But what the hell are they doing with this gold? Why are they reopening these seals? They're supposed to say once the gold's in there, the seals don't need to be opened. It's there. So why are they doing? Oh well, when it moves from one place to another, why would it move from one of these places? It only goes from the same places we all know about: West Point, Fort Knox. Why would it have to move? Doesn't make sense. And the guys, the guy in charge now, Thornton or whatever his name is, kind of caught himself in a little pickle, if you will. So what does this mean? Honestly, I don't know. Q says we have the gold. We have the gold. But after hearing this guy, Freedom of Information Act request, redacted stuff, here's 120 something pages. You asked for 1,200. We told you we'd give you 1,200. Here's 120 something, 134, whatever it was. And a lot of it was redacted. It's just gold. Moving, whatever, come on. Anyways, take care.